Hello, I am Emily Hazard.
And I'm Becca Anderson.
And this is Grey's Anatomy Uncut, a podcast where we discuss and analyze episodes of Grey's Anatomy. Today we are talking about Season 2, Episode 16, It's the End of the World. Originally sung by R.E.M. Original air date is February 5th, 2006, Super Bowl night. Written by Shonda Rhimes, directed by P. Hort. 37.88 million viewers.
Damn.
Yeah, seriously. Just to put that in perspective, guys, in 2016, so that's basically like right now, 8.5 million people live in New York City. So that's like, how many New York cities is that then?
4 New York cities, because 8 times 4 is 36.
So that's a shit ton of people. I mean, obviously that's just because people left their TVs on after the Super Bowl ended. So we'll just see, how much it's actually inflated next week. We'll see how many viewers the next episode got. Mm-hmm. But holy mother of God, that is a lot of people. So anyway, that's actually the highest viewed episode of all of Grey's Anatomy, is this one right here. Mm. It's an extended episode. It's a 2-part episode. Yep. Do you have any follow-up?
No.
I have a lot of follow-up. So we've been gone for a little while. And in our absence, I created a website for the podcast that you guys can check out. The website is greysanatomy.uncut.home.blog. So greysanatomy.uncut.home.blog. And that will take you to it. It's a work in progress, but it has all of our episodes up on the website, and we'll eventually have a whole page about the theory and just other fun stuff like that. Also, we're now officially 100% on iTunes. Every episode is up on iTunes, which means that if you rate and review us on iTunes, it actually means something now. And you can actually subscribe to us on iTunes and get each episode when it comes out. So
get hype.
Holla back.
Get hype.
Okay. Do you want to do an opening statement?
Sure. Yours is massively long, I know.
This is going to be bad.
First off, a warning. This is probably going to be a super long podcast.
Yep.
But it's part 1 of the Bond episode. So if you weren't expecting a 3-hour podcast, you're wrong.
You clearly don't know us very well.
The first time I watched this episode, I remember going into this, and I thought it was going to be like any other episode, and so I was like, I'll get some exercise while I do this, and I'll ride the bike. I literally got so into this episode that I physically could not bike. I just stood there, like, standing over the bike with, like, gripping the handlebars, because I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And then, of course, this was the episode 2. My mom, like, tried to come down, and she was like, oh, what are you watching? And I was like, Mom, leave the room. Get out. But anyway.
It's a good movie.
This episode is so shocking and thrilling and amazing. This is the first 2-part episode we get in Grey's Anatomy, and it's so effective that I think they cut the episode what I think is the climax, which Emily says she'll argue, and we can go into that argument later. Right when Meredith gets her hand on the bomb.
Are you talking about the climax of the story or the climax of the episode 216? Okay, then yes, we do disagree. Because obviously the climax of episode 216 is Meredith's hand touching the bomb.
Okay.
But the climax of the story is definitely not.
Whatever. We can argue that later. Pretty much, I feel like the single purpose of this episode and every single detail they put into this episode was solely that. Was basically at the end of the episode, they were like, Meredith's hand needs to be on the bomb. Mm-hmm. And they put so much detail into this with the audio tracks, the camera angles, everything. It's crazy because we still, the two of us, I feel like we've really looked into and analyzed this episode, and there are still things. She listened to the commentary with Shonda Rhimes, Peter Horton, and Ed Ornelas. Is that how you say his name?
I have no idea.
And they were still talking about stuff, and we were like, oh my God, we didn't even notice that. And so it's insane, the amount of stuff that they put into these 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But
the amount of just detail and planning and just... God, I miss the good old days when they actually planned this show out.
And another interesting fun fact. This is the first episode without a closing speech from Meredith.
Fun fact.
Fun fact.
You know Meredith is upset about that. But anyway.
Well, she's gripping a bomb right now, so she has other priorities.
She's Meredith. So I was really looking forward to doing this episode because it's episodes like this that actually were the reason I was inspired to podcast about it. These kind of things I wanted to talk about, but I'm also dreading it because I will forget something that is important to me, and I know I will, and then I'll just be upset about it. So I guess I just have to accept the fact that this is not going to be a perfect podcast, and I have to move on.
I think to adequately talk about every single detail in this episode, you'd need like days.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you could literally fill a book with this episode.
Like this, we would just be talking forever. No one would listen to that. I wouldn't even listen to that.
I probably would.
Okay, well, you're crazy.
So, one thing I noticed about this episode is that it's really good, but weirdly, without part 2, it doesn't really hold that emotional weight. It's really hard for me since I started watching this episode when I was 9 to separate part 1 and part 2 because I know the episode so well now that it, like, I watch part 1 and I don't even need to watch part 2 because it plays in my head. Mm-hmm. But, like, for the sake of taking notes, separating it was interesting. Like, in my head, I was like, oh, like, that emotional weight that, like, it holds for me because I'm rewatching it, it doesn't hold for the first time you watch through. There's so many things, like the conditioner, the last time we kissed. There's so many things that don't pack that punch because you haven't seen part 2 yet. So I just found that interesting.
This opening. The whole opening thing here
doesn't even make sense.
Doesn't make sense until you get to part 2.
Yeah, and that is one thing that I actually love about this episode because there are so many questions that don't make sense until you get to part 2 and then suddenly you're like, oh. And everything, I mean, Becca said this, but literally every single detail of this episode was planned out. I mean, every detail. Like, when you're watching this, I really invite you all to go back and watch it because every single camera shot, every line, every piece of audio has a purpose in this episode, and it's so much fun to watch because it seems like the people making it care about their craft so much that it makes you want to care about it.
Well, and it goes for that purpose, and it makes like all of this emphasis and like, you know, the panic in some of them and the like just sheer like
emotion,
I guess, emotion of just like this whole situation. You feel that magnitude, that's what I was looking for. I couldn't think of the word. Like the magnitude of this situation, you get that so much clearer and so much more. Like it just emphasizes it so much more with the audio, the camera angles, all of the little details you put into it. And so like subconsciously, you know, you might not be noticing like the audio changes and like all of these little pieces, but as soon as you learn about it, you're like, oh my God, yes.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we're here. We're going to teach you about it. But anyway, this episode does something that I kind of bring up whenever we get these kind of crazy situations in Grey's Anatomy. The line between possible and probable is something that they were very, very good at doing in the first couple of seasons of the show. Just straddling that line where it's like, it's not, you know, like there are some things that are like not probable to happen, but are possible. And if you go to the extreme where you're like, well, I guess it's possible that blah, blah, blah could happen, but it's just so ridiculous that you're like, this is stupid. They pull it back towards the probable enough.
Well, and I feel like what helps with a lot of that is how the episode is created and how they put so much detail into it, and it makes all of this stuff kind of really just show you that this isn't, you know, a normal occurrence and this is crazy, and they're all kind of thinking the same thing, like, how is this happening?
Well, I think it's more that these crazy situations happen to them. Like, it's brought to them because they're at the hospital instead of, like, they are put in these crazy situations. Yes. You know what I mean? That we can't talk about it anymore because I'll start spoiling, like, season 6 and season 8.
Yes.
But, yeah. I don't know what the best episode of Grey's Anatomy is. I don't know. But no matter who you are, this should be on your list of at least... This is, I mean, it should be in the top 10 at least. I mean, top 5. I don't really think the show ever gets better than in these 2 episodes. It might be the same amount, but I don't know if it gets better. So, just real quick from the audio commentary, this started out being a 1-hour Super Bowl episode that after 2 days of shooting became 2 separate episodes, so that's probably why there's no closing speech for this episode, because it's just one super long episode, basically. So, Shonda Rhimes sat down in her office and she tried to figure out, how do I add another episode to this, or another hour to this episode from the middle instead of at the end? So she knew where it was beginning, she knew where it was ending, and she wanted to add things into the middle. And I think it would be fun to just try to figure out what scenes she added, because I see some plot lines that like don't necessarily have to do with the bomb, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I bet she added that in.
But they're still good, like, good in their own way and interesting. But yeah. Do you want to do the opening, or you want me to do it?
I've been talking for a while.
All right. It's a look patients get in their eyes. There is a scent, the smell of death, some kind of sixth sense. When the great beyond is headed for you, you feel it coming. What's the one thing you've always dreamed of doing before you die? Okay, hello. Clearly not my dream. See, I told you. Not my dream.
That is definitely one of those that you have to watch it to understand what the heck she's talking about. So that opening speech is gorgeous, first of all. Super interesting, because I've always been interested in this like sixth sense about death, and the visuals and flashes in the beginning are like literally cinematically beautiful.
Well, and the one interesting thing that I completely just thought of is we get almost a sense of that sixth sense of death in the last episode, because we had, her husband's name was Lenny. Grace. And because you had that scene of her and Meredith and her being like, and seeing her husband. And so you kind of get that, like, where she is kind of going into the death part. And I don't know. I just thought of that.
So you're saying that, like, to Grace, Meredith resembled Len, who is dead? So that, like, that's kind of like foreshadowing that Meredith was going to die?
No, I was just getting, because she's talking about, like, the patients get a look in their eyes, or they kind of, like, know.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And so there's, like, an example of that.
It's just, like, okay, so the opening scene is just, like, close-up shots of Meredith's face, like, almost completely surrounded by white light. And before you even know what's happening, you should be thinking dream or heaven, really. And I bet because the opening speech talks about dreams, the audience assumed that Meredith is dreaming about Derek.
You really get that dream sense from that opening scene. And we're not going to spoil it, because you really don't fully understand what that scene is until next episode.
Which is interesting. See, I forgot that people didn't know what that scene was, because I just have seen this episode so many times. And I mean,
and you kind of get little senses, because, you know, her hand is kind of reaching out and you see Derek, and so you're like, you know, you're thinking, is she supposed to be holding something? Is she supposed to be reaching out to Derek and he's kind of not responding? Like, what is kind of happening in this moment?
And the emotion on Ellen's face is phenomenal.
But then it's also confusing, because you're having this dream of hers where she's almost reaching out to him, but then she's talking about, in the like opening, is the sixth sense about death.
And there's something so weird about, like, the bright white just coming out from the, like, the scrub room, and then just, like, the absence of anything in this OR. Like, light and sound are super important in this episode.
Yes.
Mise en scène. So anyway,
so we have that really weird kind of moment, and then we switch over to what really you get as, oh my god, this is a dream, because it's basically Meredith, Izzie, and Christina basically all showering together.
Yeah, soaping each other up. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Season 2, episode 5.
It does. Interesting.
Nasty, naughty nurses. 4.
Christina knew it.
Yeah, Christina predicted that George would have this dream.
Yeah. And so basically you're kind of like, because this is the moment when she's like, hello, clearly not my dream. And then it turns around and there's George. And you're like, yes.
This is Grey's Anatomy being so meta, though. They know the cliches that they've created, and they're steering into them for comic relief, which is something that I think the show does best.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact, this opening sequence was initially almost twice as long, and there are certain things that they could not show from the shower scene on network television, so the version that you get on the DVD is actually not what was on TV.
Oh, interesting.
I have no idea what it is exactly. It's probably just some shots of like soaping each other up.
Something, yeah. I don't know. Interesting. And then they start talking, and they're all like giving George compliments. And
yeah, but notice that they're all certain things.
Oh, yeah.
That like he is insecure when it comes to certain women.
Yeah.
Which I want to mention the Izzie one. You're the strongest, most masculine man I've ever known. George has a crush on Izzie. He has to, just a little bit. But I think he knows that she's out of his, or he thinks that she's completely out of his league and there's no way it would happen.
Well, it also connects back to the episode, like,
season 1, episode 4.
I'm not your sister.
Yes.
That whole thing. Then we have Christina being like, you're smarter than me. Mm-hmm. Which, I feel like is a thing for everyone with Christina. Mm-hmm. And then she says, you've got really great hair, which, wrong.
Incorrect.
Although at least he's finally washing his hair.
Only in his dreams.
Oh, God. And then Meredith, I'm in love with you, George, which we all know. Then you're like, ah.
And you're just like, clearly a dream.
And so then, he falls off his bed. And then Izzie's standing there, and I feel like she's supposed to look like kind of grungy and like
so funny,
beat down, but she's so cute.
She comes in looking like injured, or like her hair looks so like disheveled.
She just looks tired.
And like, how did they come up with this line? This is the last time I'm gonna tell you. If you're gonna clog up the toilet, you've got to be willing to use a plunger. Otherwise, we're gonna make you crap in the backyard. I'm just like, Izzie.
And she's eating Super Bran cereal, which cue Derek, healthy breakfast, A+ for Izzie.
Derek is like, you should be eating muesli. Yeah. You should be eating muesli? I don't know why that's Derek's voice, but I use that a lot for him.
It works.
Do you notice that how even in the beginning of these scenes, these like average scenes, something is wrong? Uh-huh. Like, this episode taps into your intuition. It's like so weird. It taps into that gut feeling and it just screams like something is not right.
We are basically, I feel like, Meredith in this episode, because you cut over to the next scene and obviously she knows. She's like, there's something wrong. Something's going to happen today. She knows. And the audience were like, we're with you, Meredith. Something is going to happen. You should stay in bed.
But did you even okay, so you watched this. I can't remember the first time I watched this because it was so long ago. But when you watched it the first time, did you have a feeling that something was wrong? Like something was not right?
I feel like I started getting because when Meredith is talking, and she later says, I have the feeling I'm going to die today. And that was kind of I was like, huh, interesting. Mm-hmm. But it really didn't, what I remember most from watching this was the moment when Alex is like, did it go off? Did you get an explosion? And that's when I stopped moving the pedals, stepped off the bike, and I was like, holy shit, what? And I remember that, and it's just, yeah,
because I don't know, maybe it's just because I've been rewatching it.
I feel like on a rewatch you start to notice the subtleties of what they're kind of doing to make you get that uneasy.
Yeah, what they're setting up.
Because really, I feel like the first time you're watching this, you're thinking that it's just going to be another episode, and so I feel like you're really paying attention to the plot and honestly, in this first scene, I was still kind of being like, that was a weird opening, the shower scene, all that stuff, and so it's very subliminal messaging, kind of almost.
It's appealing to your subconscious is what it's doing, and that's why I love it, because it's that gut feeling where you don't know what's wrong, but something is wrong. They do it on Revenge a lot too. Mm-hmm. That show, they specifically made the set slightly off. The lighting is slightly off. The everything about the beach house set is slightly fabricated almost. It looks just tiny bit fake. Yeah. And they did that on purpose because it gets to you.
Yeah.
So then Christina's going to be supportive. So they said during the commentary that they knew they were going to get a lot of new viewers, so they had Meredith literally just like give a backstory of the whole show in one speech here, which I was like, yeah, that's pretty smart actually. So I'm going to read this. Okay. The man I love has a wife. Then he chooses her over me. And that wife takes my dog. Christina's face is like the audience. She's like, what the fuck? Okay, she didn't take the dog. I gave it to her. But I didn't mean to give it to her. I meant to give it to him. But that does not change the fact that she's got my McDreamy. And my McDog. She's got my McLife. And what have I got? You know, I can't remember the last time we kissed. 'Cause you never think the last time is the last time. You think there'll be more. You think you have forever, but you don't. Plus my conditioner decided to stop working and I think I have brittle bones. I just need something to happen. I need a sign that things are going to change. I need a reason to go on. I need some hope. And in the absence of hope, I need to stay in bed and I feel like I might die today.
And I love how, like, right after she does, Christina kind of pauses for a minute and looks like she's, like, thinking about what she says. And then she's just like, whatever, everyone has problems. Now get your ass out of bed and get to work. And then basically, like, just, like, pushes her out of bed.
I need something to happen. I need a sign that things are going to change.
Just wait.
Well, I mean, like, the bomb is something happening, but it's not necessarily a good sign that something's going to change, you know?
No. But I do...
Well, we'll talk about that later, I guess.
So I feel like a lot of that has to do more in the second episode.
Yeah. And then they bring up this thing. It's Burke and the chief, and he goes, quiet board. And this is important, but it's one of those things where you don't know it's important until the second episode again.
Well, I feel like this is more of a bit more obvious, like the episode being like, something's not...
Yeah, something's wrong. Yeah.
Because, 2 episodes ago, we had the image of the crowded board, and that being part of the reason that all the nurses were leaving, and now we have quiet board.
I feel like the surgical board can kind of predict how the episode's going to go, because they're... Like, I feel like the surgical board kind of controls what happens in the episode.
It's like the magic mirror.
Yeah, it's evident of, like, how the episode's going to go, because there's another case of that in season 3.
Surgical board, who's the best surgeon of all?
It's me. Try not to spoil anything. In season 3, someone writes on the surgical board that's not supposed to be writing on the board, and that's kind of like, that is a... yeah. Evident of where that storyline's going. So yeah, the surgical board is super important. And then Derek tries to make friends and he is flat out denied by Burke. It is hilarious. What do you want to do?
You and I, we've known each other for a while now, right?
Yes.
We've done several successful surgeries together.
Yes.
Your girlfriend is my ex-girlfriend's best friend.
Yes.
Why can't we call each other by our first name?
I don't think so. I have no interest in being your friend. Loser. Seriously. Dr. Shepard.
Dr. Burke.
And Derek's just like all the life just drains out of his eyes. He's just like, why can't we call each other by our first names? And Burke is like, nope.
And Burke's just like, ew, gross.
Denied. That's perfect. Burke is like, I know nothing about social interactions, but I still don't want to be your friend. In your freaking face, Derek. Pow, pow, pow.
I've heard stories about your shit trailer. No.
In the woods of desolation.
All the interns are in the pit, getting ready.
They're basically just talking about that they miss Bailey. What I want you to take away from this scene, though, is that Shonda said there are a lot of really tight, detailed shots, and it's supposed to make you feel claustrophobic. And
again, kind of the slight uneasiness of like,
that's what I'm talking about. Every single thing about this episode was planned out.
And then all of a sudden we get this Meredith and Derek scene, which is awesome because they do a similar thing to kind of what they did in the beginning, where everything else is muted and all this is their audio. But it kind of gets you more in this scene because we had, music and all of the other interns talking and they're still right there, and it just kind of shifts over to Meredith, and then all of a sudden everything else goes quiet and it's just them.
Yeah, well, it's even before Derek shows up in the scene. It shifts over to Meredith and she's just staring ahead, like you can tell there's something still bothering her. And like it demands attention because it's like they mute everything in the background, and the only way I can describe it is like you're underwater. Like,
Yes.
you can still hear things,
But you're like detached.
yeah, but it's like you're detached from the rest of the world, which is, oh God, I love this. Derek just goes, "You all right?"
I have a feeling.
I get those.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And?
If you wait long enough, it passes.
Promise?
I promise. And it's like, the thing is that when you read it on a piece of paper like that, it is just like such a simple scene, but Patrick and Ellen fill in what you're supposed to be getting out of that scene with their acting so well. Like, reading it on a piece of paper and seeing it are completely different things.
Well, and I feel like they're not really supposed to say much. It's kind of like all of their dialogue where everything is almost in between the lines, and they're having this seemingly like normal conversation of like, I have this feeling, and her coworker's like, yeah, it'll be okay. But they're really both not talking about like
Yeah.
what's really going on.
It's like the audience has to fill in the blanks, which is so gratifying that, or I don't know, it's just so much more interesting than having the writers fill in the blanks for you. It's like, you know, you can trust your audience, trust your audience that they are paying attention and that they want to figure these things out. So yeah, Shonda mentioned that they took all the sound out of this scene, which, was something we noticed before I even watched this commentary. They said, quote, "The episode is very subjective. This episode in particular, it's way inside Meredith's head. And her whole struggle is about she could give up or she could go on." And so that made me think, like, to be or not to be. Like, Hamlet.
Yeah. And then it's super cool. Like, all of the normal hospital sounds kind of gradually come in, almost like they come in with Addison entering this conversation.
Well, it's like when Meredith leaves, it's like Derek has to be forced to go back into the real world. It's like that is his fantasy world. And then when she leaves, he has to go back to reality. And she's just like, "Hey, what you doing?" And he just goes, "Waiting for it to pass." For what to pass?
My kidney stone.
My kidney stone, bitch. Yeah. I mean, this scene literally is screaming. Derek has feelings for Meredith, but he's trying to wait for them to pass, and clearly they haven't. And
Yes.
Addison is almost painfully naive throughout this season. I don't know. I almost wonder, like, if there's stuff going on between them that we're not seeing just because this show is so much in Meredith's point of view.
At least, like, kind of what I was getting from it is it's almost in a sense you get that she is so hopeful in their marriage and working this all out that she could possibly almost be blind to that kind of stuff. Like, the sense of, I don't know if you've ever done this, but like talking to divorced people and they're like, the signs were there and I just didn't realize it or just didn't pay attention to it. And so I almost wonder if it's kind of that thing too, where she's just like so hopeful and so like, yes, this is going to work out, that she's like, no, that's not happening, and almost like blind to it.
Or maybe she's just thinking, my 11-year marriage is going to
Trumps
beat
everything else.
Well, it's going to beat out this 2-month relationship that he had.
Yeah. That kind of thing. Or like,
But it's not.
yeah.
So then, Izzie and Alex is like, "Hey, you want to do charts later?" And you know what? I just don't give a shit about him, so I'm just going to move on. Izzie just says, "Go stand over there." And I was like, Katherine Heigl, you take, like, the worst comeback and make it, like, scathing. I freaking love you.
And then they're like talking about, oh, like what president we're going to have. And then Bailey is just standing behind them like, "I hate you all. You suck."
It's got to be confirmation that Bailey got all the insane interns. Like,
100%.
Do you think, like, the rest of the hospital is just, like, normal people?
I feel like all of this is like, it's Bailey and her interns and then like the couple attendings that everyone else in the hospital is like, these people are batshit crazy. Don't talk to them.
Balls
or like
to the wall.
the other surgeons, like, they're like, "Which interns should I get today?" And they're like, "Anyone but Bailey's." Like,
They're like, ha, ha, ha.
"Did you hear about their hot dog eating contest?" Like,
So then Shonda Rhimes was talking about why she named the episodes what she did, and she said because after these 2 episodes, everything does change for the interns. Something that I've noticed, the show literally shifts. Like, I have said this before, season 2, episode 15 is the last of an era of Grey's Anatomy. After this...
well, it's kind of like how you said, like, there were, like, overarching kind of like things, and you have like where you split. And I feel like this is now like, I feel like 16 and 17 are almost in their kind of own world.
It's like they split the season in half.
And then like after this, everything's different. But then before it, like I was different, and so it's like almost like chapters. And
well,
like
I'm not trying to spoil anything, but season 2, episode 15 is the last intern family episode, because in 18 something happens, and it is never the same after it. Even like a season later, where you think everything is gonna be like back to normal, it's still never the same.
Spoiler alert: Meredith murders everyone. No.
That would not surprise me at all.
And takes over the hospital. That's what really happens.
Also, the Bailey George hug is supposed to be foreshadowing for later.
The George and Bailey hug is just a foreshadow for part 2. And it's so cute. Like, and he's so adorable when he like smiles at the other interns and he's like, Bailey's back. And they're just like, oh, George, you're so pure. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, don't touch me ever again.
So then the ambulance comes, and we are introduced to Hannah Davies, played by Christina Ricci, I think.
Whatever. Ricci.
Yeah, and she went on to have a pretty lucrative career. She's been in a lot. And she's amazing. She, like, seriously is. I feel like she's the Ellen Pompeo. She's like JV Ellen Pompeo, is what she is. And then we get our first sound of drums in this episode, which is super important. It indicates death. The sound of drums.
And you'll see it come again.
And again, and again, and again. So, no intro, because...
Why have consistency?
Yeah, why have consistency when you could just drive somebody like me with ADHD insane? No, what? OCD insane and ADHD. So the first serious use of drums in this episode is with Christina and Burke scene, and initially Shonda Rhimes wanted no music, just drums in this episode, but they actually decided to compromise, which was a good choice because it needed music.
Well, I think it'd be really weird if it were, like, with all of the other episodes, it would just be really weird if this one didn't.
Yeah. And then this is a quote. There's something interesting about their relationship because they're very passive-aggressive and, quote, wrong with each other a lot of the time. And then P. Hort goes, which makes them right. And then she's like, exactly. And I was like, that's what we've been saying for so long.
Yes.
Like, they're like so not right, but that's what makes them right. Oh, God, I love them. And here's another conversation between Burke and Christina that literally doesn't hold weight until something we find out in part 2. So we're going to read it because it will hold weight later. And Burke goes, you were gone when I woke up.
I had to do a thing.
You didn't leave a note.
Yeah, well, I had this thing to do. You know, I did this thing.
And once again.
What?
We go to sleep, I think everything is fine, and by the time I wake up, you're just a little bit crazy.
Okay, I'm not crazy. I had a thing.
Okay. And, like, literally, that doesn't...
You're just kind of like, okay.
But it holds so much weight later.
Oh, God. Which is interesting. Like, I love how they do this, because so many of these scenes in this episode where you're like, oh, that doesn't mean anything. And then you watch part 2 and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, that did mean something after all.
And it's awesome.
So then Shonda Rhimes goes, this is a quote, there's a feeling that there's an entire world about paramedics going on off screen because she really is the Meredith of her world. And that's her talking about Hannah. And I was like, I love that concept.
Well, I like how they kind of do that. And it's like, they have their lives outside of this show, and I like how they kind of bring that up and make it feel more real. And you're like, yeah, this person wasn't just brought in like, hey, you're going to be on this ambulance just for the show. It's like, no, they're talking about like, she says later, you know, like, I started like a couple weeks ago, and I'm new to this, and blah, blah. And,
but I mean, you can throw those kind of lines into any show, but for some reason it feels, like, I feel like it has to do with Christina Ricci acting, because...
But I like how they did it.
She... is very good at this, and yeah, she is the Meredith of her show. Just to be clear, she doesn't actually have a show. It's just she could.
In her dream worlds, she does.
I like this. You don't stick your hand inside a patient when you don't know how he was injured. You don't stick your hand inside of a patient at all. And she goes, yeah, I know that now. Like, I want to use that in my life. I love that. I always loved how she delivered that line.
And then Burke is just to the other paramedic, like, get out. I'm done with you.
Anyway, moving on to the screaming lady.
Which, good God, how is this woman not out? Like,
how did this actress do it?
I don't know. Which, first off, how has she not lost her voice? Second off, I'd be having like an asthma attack if I tried to do this for this long.
Christina's like, Burke says, shut her up. And I'm just imagining Burke being like, please stop all of this racket. I cannot hear myself think.
And I really like how a lot of, like, at least in this scene, the only sound you kind of have going on in the background is her screaming.
Yeah, there's no music or anything.
I love that.
And so Shonda said she played it like she wanted to talk, but every time she opened her mouth, screams came out. And I was like, that's so true. That's exactly how this actress played this scene. It's kind of hilarious. And then we get a brief, tiny little scene of Olivia. Again, something that I love, that they, like, bring her back, you know, even for a brief scene, just to keep that world building, just to keep that web going.
I love how, because Olivia just kind of walks by and says, you know, this whole line or whatever, and the whole time Mindy, the wife, just, like, screams louder, but is, like, reaching out towards Olivia, like, get me away from these insane people.
It's hilarious.
And Olivia just, like, doesn't notice, keeps walking.
Like, does not give a shit. Yeah.
It's just so funny.
And then Alex, can you try to calm down? Can you hear me? And then he just literally screams in her face. Which is iconic instantly.
And then she just starts crying, and his face is like, I'm going to murder you.
Yeah. But, like, that screaming in her face is iconic. It's such a good moment.
And I feel like only Alex would have done that. Like,
oh, yeah. No, it wouldn't have worked if anybody else did it.
Izzie would have, like, sat next to her and, like, tried to comfort her and been like, ma'am, it's okay.
Shoved a muffin down her throat or something.
Christina would have, like, punched her in the face and be like, shut up.
Or probably just tranquilize her. I'm going to be honest about this. Of every storyline in this episode, Bailey's is my least favorite. I love it, but I also don't have that much interest in it. Like, this whole, like, Bailey's back, Chief, and then they're, like, being, like, super cutesy about it. I'm like, ugh.
I think in this episode is supposed to be kind of like this part of it, I feel like is kind of like the comedy, like, lighter parts of this episode. I like Bailey's episode, but I like it more because of part 2.
Again, like everything with this episode.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, like, I feel like this just scene is just to be, like, a little bit lighter. Like,
yeah,
Bailey's back.
Does it work for you?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. Oh my god. When Derek kisses Addison on the cheek.
So cute.
I, like, swoon. Like, I'm like, that is adorable. I don't know how Grey's Anatomy does it. Because I ship Derek and Addison, where at the same time, I don't want them to be together at all.
Yes.
Isn't that the weirdest thing?
Yes.
Oh, God. How?
This is about the point, I feel like, in season 2, when you start getting that feeling of, like, damn, you know, episode 1, like, season 2, I was supposed to hate this woman, and now, like, I'm begging for her to have more screen time, and you're like...
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because she barely gets any screen time.
And you're, like, and that's the thing, like, I feel like you're just getting that feeling of, like, God, I'm supposed to hate her, but she's just so awesome. And, like you said, they're adorable, and you're like, no, that's cute, but still, where's Meredith?
Shonda Rhimes actually noted in this scene that George and the Chief are the optimists of this show, which in a way is so true.
George definitely is.
And the Chief as well. Mm-hmm. And then she also was like, Bailey's always in control, but in this episode we see her completely lose control of everything, which is, you know, the whole intrigue, and I thought that was interesting to put in. Mm-hmm. Izzie and Christina fighting over a patient, and that patient ends up being Tucker, which is Bailey's husband. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time we've actually, like, seen his face. The only other time we've seen him was just, like, his body, which could have been played by anybody in season 2, episode 5.
I love how they revealed it. It wasn't just like they brought him in and they're like, oh, this patient is so-and-so, Bailey's husband. You know what I mean?
What's interesting, too, is that Derek got him as a patient because he's the only one that's ever seen Bailey's husband. You know? Mm-hmm. He saw him from a distance when he was like, you're married. You remember in season 2, episode 5? And so it's interesting how, like, he didn't recognize him, you know?
But I love the, like, Izzie, no, I don't have Bailey's husband's phone.
Why would I have Bailey's husband's phone, George? Yeah. What's Bailey's husband's name? And I love how that's it.
And her face, after she says that, you're like, oh my God.
But I love that the reveal is just that. That's literally the reveal. Yes. It's not like spelling it out for you. Like,
there's not a huge card in the background that says, Tucker Jones is Bailey's husband.
Yeah. I like, it shows complex writing. You know, you have to be a good writer to write like that. So then we get, I believe this is like the first song. Oh no, you know what? We didn't even talk about the song that was in the shower scene.
Oh, we did.
Hang on 1 second. The song playing in the shower scene was Dead Streets by the Monotypes. So this would be our second song.
Miniature Disasters by KT Tunstall. Mm-hmm. The names of these songs. Perfect. Miniature Disasters.
Kind of true.
Just wait.
Meredith is just like, I'm not going mini. I'm going family-sized. Okay, and then Hannah says this, which will never make sense to me. She goes, my hand is getting numb, and I gotta tell you, this whole insides are all bloody and squishy thing is so not good for my gag reflex. I'm like, why are you a paramedic?
Yeah, like, don't you have to deal with at least blood on
That's like the grossest, like, occupation you could have. Like, you see everything.
Like, paramedic, surgeon, like...
Firefighter.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like she's like, hey, I was this random bystander that, like, came up to this and, like, whatever. It's like, isn't that kind of your job, is to deal with blood?
I mean, she is new, but, like, you went to school for this. Like, you know what you were getting into. I feel no sympathy for you. So then we have another Dr. Burke, Dr. Shepard scene. But then Addison comes up. And she's just like, yeah, keep me posted. Hey, Preston. And then Burke is like, good seeing you, Addison.
And Derek is just like, what the hell?
He's so insulted. He's like, how dare you? Derek and Meredith are perfect for each other.
I also just like, I like her. And you don't like me? No.
Burn. And you don't like me? No. The way he says that is so funny, and he just walks away. And Derek is like, that hurt my feelings. Wait, that was Burke. That hurt my feelings? That hurt my feelings.
I can't. I'm not good with voices.
You gotta do that hurt my feelings.
That hurt my feelings.
It's like he's crying. And then we get this little short scene with, like, Tucker and Derek.
And, you know, he just got, like, rejected by one friend, but then Tucker says, like, that Bailey really likes Derek, and Derek's just like, yeah.
Derek's like, I thought so. I like her too. Which is kind of...
Bailey's now number 1 on my best friends list.
But it is kind of sweet. It's kind of like, she really likes you. And it's like, you know that...
That's a compliment from Bailey.
Well, that's huge, because Bailey's talking about you to her husband at home.
And she hates everyone.
But she doesn't hate everyone.
Doesn't.
That's the whole point of Bailey, is that she clearly doesn't.
Good morning, Dr. Bailey. Shut up. Let's just rewind to that scene.
So then we get Tyler, Alex, and Mindy in the ER. I freaking love Tyler.
All this blood and none of it's hers.
But anyway, so this scene is probably the biggest scene. Well, no, it's not. But, it's the initiation scene where you find out why you've been feeling uncomfortable this whole episode. Yes. And
so basically we find that the patient that is in Burke's ER was shot by a gun that him and his best friend put together.
A World War II replica bazooka that they put together in their backyard like inbred rednecks.
I just love, you put on your costumes and build your stupid toys and you play. We reenact. Nobody reenacts World War II.
And then he's like, the M9A1 bazooka. I was like, you know what? You need to go shoot yourself in the face with the M9A1 bazooka, because that is how stupid you are. And there's a drum hit.
Yes.
So then they try to go shoot the thing. Drum hit. Like that. So fun fact, they went through dozens of different drum sounds and beats until they found the right one that would make you feel uneasy in this one instance. This is what I'm talking about. Please, there's gotta be another show that's done this.
Rewatch it and notice these things.
It's just, this is why Grey's Anatomy is always gonna be my favorite, because they put in so much effort to make a good episode.
And then we get Paul, I'm the gunner. James is the loader.
You're a freaking idiot.
And then you should see it. And you're like, no, this just shot a man.
Nobody wants to see your dumbass bazooka, Paul.
1.5 pound rocket.
Nobody cares.
It's a beauty.
Anyway, and then I like when Mindy goes, it didn't work. Like, and then there's just like weird angles and just like the music is so uncomfortable. And Alex goes, well, he shot himself with a bazooka. Yeah. He shot himself with a bazooka. Like I said, morons, the pair of them. And then this is the moment. Was there an explosion?
And Paul's like, huh?
Was there an explosion?
No. Why?
And
yeah.
And as soon as Alex hears that, he's like, holy fuck. And, like, that's... Can you, like... You can almost feel
I'm getting
his stomach
goosebumps
drop.
just thinking about it.
But you know what I mean? Like, you...
Yes.
Like, when you see Justin Chambers' face...
The realization, you see it come over his face.
Great actor.
And the, like, holy crap. Like,
Yeah.
so good.
And good job, Justin, because not every actor could pull that off. But, like, then... Like, you can feel his stomach drop.
Mm-hmm. And then we get this cool montage where it's constantly changing between clips of Alex running kind of awkwardly.
Super awkwardly.
That's what I might add. But, you know, I mean, if you're in a panicky situation, maybe
No,
it'd be
but
weird.
he does not run well. Okay. Every single time he's run on this show, it's been soups awkward.
And then you flash between that, Derek's OR when he's about to, you know, start surgery on Tucker with a drill, and Burke. And I love how they kind of do that, all the, like, flashes with the camera, and you really get that panic and the sense of, like, oh my god. Like,
urgency.
Yes.
Yeah, and so when the chief goes, hey, slow down, I just want you all to remember this moment because George will be sprinting in that exact same hallway, and the chief will tell him to slow down in season 4.
The chief, he's really just a traffic cop.
Slow down. Yeah, so...
Oh, and we get Bailey in those montages. I forgot about her.
But then, like, it's like... building, and it's like and the noise is, it's like it's so it's not even like the episode is loud, but it's like the noise inside your own head is building up.
And you get the cool because Burke is going like on the count of 3 and he goes 1, and then it's like clips, and then it's like 2 and clips, and then right as he's about to like press the scalpel in, Alex is like, Dr. Burke, I need to.
But it's not like that. Yeah. That's what I want to point out. It's just this. It's just a normal, quiet opening of the door. That's what makes it so cool, is that it's not like, Dr. Burke, I need to talk to you. It's like a normal, just like every day how somebody would open a door. It's like this building for just like silence.
Yeah.
And calmness. And he goes, you know,
Dr.
I need
Burke,
to speak with you.
Speak with you.
And then there's a drum hit. And then I'm in surgery crib. Drum hit. It's supposed to be a heartbeat. You want to talk to me, sir. And I've always liked how Alex is very insistent, but isn't panicking.
Yes.
And Burke also does the same thing in this episode.
I think that was the thing that surprised me so much, because if it was me in the situation, I mean, I would burst in that OR being like, don't cut him open, he has unexploded ammo. And, you know, like, and just how Alex, you really have to think about it, as an intern, this is his first situation with anything close to this level. I mean, Addison later, they're like, I've never seen this before, like, or whatever, and they're attendings, and he's able to go into that OR and just be like, Dr. Burke, I need to talk to you. Like, you really need to talk to me.
I just like that you want to talk to me, sir. Like, and
like, but he almost says it, and they're kind of all looking at him, and it, like, he could have said the same thing, like, if he had seen something, like, in the guy's X-ray, or, like, if something, like, you know what I mean? Everyone in that, like, they're just kind of like, huh, like, I wonder what Alex is talking to him about. Like, it's not like, oh my god, something's wrong.
well, that's the point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love that, and it's really awesome how he's able to keep his cool.
And Burke was such a good choice for, like, just
being the doctor.
Writing wise. Like, it couldn't have been Derek. It couldn't have been Addison. You know, it couldn't have been the chief. It needed to be Burke in this case, because we've been making fun of him for so long. But his robot monotone personality is exactly the personality that you would need to keep everyone in line in this situation.
I mean, if you'll notice, Hannah is completely fine in this moment when Burke is in there. It's as soon as he leaves the OR that she starts having issues.
Yeah, seriously, his robot monotone personality has like a calming effect. It's like the weirdest thing. And you know what's weird? Is that I remember the first few times I watched this episode, Burke has a calming effect on the audience.
Yes.
Which is so amazing that, like, Isaiah Washington, as a character, can have a calming effect on people watching a screen.
Yes.
Like, crazy. Anyway, so they start talking, and then Hannah goes, he's cute, he's single, and I'm like, please don't. But I mean,
Meredith is just like, don't even.
Meredith doesn't even like respond. She's just like, are you talking?
And then he asks Hannah this question. He's just kind of like, don't move your hand, just tell me what you feel.
Yeah, it's just so, he's just like...
But he's still just very calm, like, yes, okay.
And then Dr. freaking Milton, I hate this guy. He's just like, oh my god. And I'm like, you know what, Dr. Milton? Just be cool for once in your life. Burke is like, please be cool for once in your life.
Yeah, really.
And Shonda wrote the pink mist scene and didn't think they were actually going to include it, but then decided that she wanted to so badly, so they began to worry about the guy that they cast as Milton wouldn't be able to handle it, and happy coincidence, he could and does. So, just fun fact about that dude. I just like this, Dr. Burke, you should know you're starting to scare me. And then Burke just goes, don't be scared. Everything is going to be fine. Which is like creepy. Yeah. It's almost like creepy when he says it. Shonda says, this is something we both did not notice, but when Burke says this line, it's the biggest indication that everything is not going to be fine, because in the pilot, he made a point to say, you never tell a patient that everything's going to be fine. Yeah. So the fact that he said it is supposed to indicate that it's not. I cool. Miss that.
I totally, yeah.
Yeah. It's so cool, though, how Burke gets calmer and calmer and calmer, almost like robotic, as everyone else gets more and more panicked. It gives you such a weird, uneasy feeling. Mm-hmm. It's like an unnatural calm.
But I also I feel like that's so part of his personality, though.
Mm-hmm. And then he goes, I want you to walk out of this room. Walk, do not run. Go and tell the charge nurse that we have a code black. Tell him I am sure. And then tell him to call the bomb squad.
And Meredith is just like, what the hell?
And I love how Burke never even looks at her when he says it. It's just like literally every choice they made in this episode was the right choice. Mm-hmm. That's the only way I can describe this episode. Shonda said, by the way, for people who care, Burke got a new scrub cap in this episode. And she said it as a joke, but you know what, Shonda? We care. And I'm very glad to know that Burke got a new scrub cap in this episode.
In fact, we would like to know where he got it and why he got it and what happened to the old one.
And how much it costs. We cut over to Addison, Bailey, and George. Things are progressing.
And freaking George with this. He's like trying to help and like, you know, he's such like, trying to be an optimist. And then, well, women all over the world also die giving birth at home every single day. And you're like,
why would you say that? And then we get the beginning of a series of pagers going off. And I really like how they did this, because it's like you slowly start seeing, like, you are there while everyone is finding out about the news. All of our main characters.
Mm-hmm. And how they all differently react to it. Because Addison, I feel like, kind of freaks out.
She holds it together.
I mean, she holds it together in front of the patient, but like, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell she's like, oh, nothing, like.
Mm-hmm. Shonda made it a point to have it be the intern saying what's happening again and again and again, because she thought it would heighten the tension to have no person of authority actually saying what's happening. So, like, when Christina reads it off to Derek and says, like, there's been a code black, and, you know, like, George and Izzie say, code black. Dr. Shepard, what's a code black? Like, they just keep saying that. And she said that she was staying away from the chief on purpose to try to avoid that authority figure.
Yeah. Yeah,
so she said that it was supposed to allow us, the audience, to be the interns again, which I think it does. Heightens the tension really well.
Oh, yeah. And then Derek is just like, if anyone wants to leave, you can. But he basically says it in, like, the sense of, like, if anyone leaves, I will hate you forever and you will be a coward.
He says it like such an asshole. Like, he's just like... And also, I have to mention this because it bothers me every time. He goes, could be a drill. Even if it's not a drill, I can't evacuate. I've got an open brain on the table. Listen to how he says table. It is so weird. He's like, got an open brain on the table. Like, I just don't understand how anyone could pronounce it like that. And he goes, if anyone wants to go, they should go. Anybody want to evacuate? Going once, going twice, and then he's like, 3 times. And I'm like, dude, you are such an asshole. Like, the way he says it, he's just like, basically, if you evacuate, you're a loser and a coward.
And I hate you.
Yeah. And I'm like, good God, Derek.
Like,
He's just like, nobody wants to go. That's what I thought. And I'm like, you know what? Go sit on a firework.
And then we have George and Izzie and Addison in the elevator, and they're kind of like, code black? What's a code black? Like, all of this stuff. And then it just opens the elevator.
Insanity, basically.
Like, there's police officers, like, everything, and you're like, oh my God.
Oh my Lord. And Shonda said that she had everyone wearing black in a world where everyone is always blue, and that was on purpose. Mm-hmm. Have all the police officers wearing black, 1, because death, black, but 2, because everyone always wears either light blue navy blue. And so to have such a contrast was to show that something bad was happening. Mm-hmm. Now we get one of the many astounding scenes with Christina Ricci. I hope we're saying that right. With just Burke and Christina.
And she basically finally kind of says what is actually going on, because all we've really gotten is Alex being like, there was an explosion, it wasn't through and through, and there's a code black. That's all we've gotten. And so finally I feel like this is the moment where she just goes, so I'm touching live unexploded ammunition. And it's like,
thank you for explaining the plot.
And I kind of like how she's the one that finally admits it. Like, because she's almost like the lowest like person on like the totem pole of list. Like, but she's the one that's touching it. She's the one that's actually like really super in danger from this. And then Burke, I'm afraid so.
And it's interesting that Burke is there to comfort her, but he's standing as far away as possible in this room from her.
Oh, yeah.
I just always like that choice. And they explain that, they took him off the machines to cut off the flow of oxygen because it was dangerous, which will be important for next episode. Another thing. And then, like, you can just kind of see, like, the panic start to rise in Hannah. And Burke goes, Hannah. And then she's just like, what if I take my hand out really quickly? And I don't know. I just love everything that Isaiah Washington is doing in this episode. We'd have to ask the bomb squad that when they arrive, but I'm guessing that would cause the ammo to shift and explode. And then she's just like zoning out again, and he's like, Hannah, you're keeping Mr. Carlson from bleeding out. You are keeping him alive. And I don't know, it's just like
He does a very good job of comforting her, but also being as far away from her as possible.
Which is like another dynamic that is just makes you so uneasy. Like, you feel like it could go off any second.
Oh, yeah.
Fun fact, the sound for the ambu bag was actually recorded later in the editing room. They went through a lot of different sound effects to find the one that was like kind of the most unsettling.
I feel like they almost made it a little bit louder than it would actually be, to kind of have that kind of panicky, like, that's all she's hearing.
Yeah, exactly. Another mention that this OR is extremely dark right now.
Yes.
And that's on purpose, for mise-en-scène and everything. Code black, it's really dark. Makes sense.
Yeah, so then we go over, and the chief is basically explaining what's happening to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're...
And basically, like, the whole moment is supposed to be, like, the chief finding out, because he's like, everyone's evacuated except for Dr. Burke's team, and Izzie's like, no, Dr. Shepard's still up there. And they're like, what? And then the bomb squad walks in.
Yeah. By the way, this is a very fine-looking man. The guy who plays Dylan Young, the bomb squad guy, is the Friday Night Lights guy. Kyle Chandler. Yeah. He's a very fine-looking human. And Shonda said that she wanted Dylan to seem like a possibility to enter the world of Grey's Anatomy. Like, he could be a love interest for Meredith.
Like, he could be a new character that they're adding in.
Yeah, they really wanted to push that he could fit into this show.
Yeah. So then this is now the bomb squad figuring out, like, hey, not everyone has evacuated. And I love where they, like, go over and Christina is, like, yelling at this bomb squad person. And then Meredith just goes, oh, no, she will hurt him.
And then Christina, what's going on? Bomb in a body cavity. And this dialogue, can we do this, please? Yeah. Just start with the man.
Man, all I got is Bailey's husband's open brain.
What procedure?
Craniotomy with Shepard.
Shepard's got Bailey's husband on the table?
Bailey's having a baby.
And they're just like, excuse me, stop talking.
Yeah, like, they're just talking, and Dylan is just like, I'm so done with you two, like, come on.
It is so funny. And then, like, their little looks that they give, they're like, all right, God. And it's just like the comedy that you need in this really tense situation. So then we cut over to George and Izzie, and this is some of the most patented George and Izzie dialogue of the whole show. So they're just like the doers. Like, Christina and Meredith are doers. They do, and we watch. We're watchers. There's a quote from Shonda. Our show is generally not about huge things. It's about little things, the details of human experience. But I didn't know what the addition of something as big as a bomb would do to our show. But it actually didn't do anything. It allowed them to be even more petty and more self-involved. And then Peter goes, there's a charm to it. And I'm like, exactly.
Well, it's because I feel like the reason that this is done so much better than some of the other, like disasters and things that we get later on, is because yes, there's a bomb in the hotel, but they're still focusing on
hospital.
I just said hotel. Why did I say hotel? There's a bomb in the hospital.
There's a bomb in the hotel.
And they're still focusing on, Izzie and George being like, we want to be doers too. And like, they're still focusing on all of these little things. And it's not just, there's a bomb in the hospital. There's a bomb in the hospital. There's a bomb in the hospital.
And they're just sitting on the floor, like, eating sandwiches. Like,
it's
this
still
is what we
obviously,
want.
like, has to do with it because they're there because they can't be other places. But, like, you do have that kind of, it's not all about, like, we're just going to look at this bomb for the next hour long.
Or just be, like, super over dramatic or have 10 million scenes of people crying. It's like, oh, no. Whatever. And then Izzie goes, we have to do. And then she, like, stands up, and George is like, oh, you mean we're starting right now? Okay. It was so funny. Kaboom by Ursula 1000. Strange name.
These song choices.
Is the song playing. And Izzie comes into this, like, break room where Alex is making himself a cup of coffee. And I challenge you, audience members, to tell me what Alex was saying in this scene, because I feel like when you watch it, you literally have you don't even listen to a word he says. It's kind of funny.
Basically, because you're just focusing on Izzie, kind of the thing.
But like, Alex's lines are hilarious. He's just like, the annoying twins are on the OR floor with a guy who literally might explode in their faces. It's a morgue waiting to happen in here. Just saying, people should get while the get's good, because there might not be a tomorrow. And Izzie's just like, can you shut up?
Oh, and finally she is annoying enough, and he's like, what?
And then they cut to them going at it in a linen closet. Which, I mean, okay. The sexual tension between them was building up for, like, the entire show. I still, personally, would never sleep with a guy who...
cheated on you?
Well, that was the second thing. Yeah. 1, cheated on me. But 2, wallpapered the hospital with embarrassing pictures of me.
I mean, fair.
I mean, I know that's just because he was intimidated by her, like he's like a little kid on a playground who beats up the person that he has a crush on. But,
yeah.
Icky. No. But anyway, she's horny AF, as usual. Yeah. And so, this is so ironic, because this is a quote from the commentary. Katie is so fearless, she doesn't have an insincere bone in her body. Let's revisit that quote in season 6. Hypocrites. Anyway, so then Izzie has this weird statistic ready to go that she hasn't had sex in 8 months, 12 days. So I guess Hank?
Probably, yeah.
Because, like, if we're thinking about this, I mean, Season 1 was 2 months. Seasons 1, 2, and 3 are supposed to be 1 year. So, that pretty much lines up, actually.
All right.
Anyway, Hank the Tank.
Gross.
Yeah. And apparently that facial reaction was all Justin. It wasn't in the script. So that's kind of interesting. And Shonda pointed out that this episode is about sex, birth, and death. The beginning, middle, and end. Because you can see examples of that if you watch part 1 and part 2. So then we have Dylan v. Derek. And it's kind of strange how, like, Shonda mentioned that Dylan was supposed to be seen as somebody that could be a love interest for Derek, because it almost seems like these two are kind of going up against each other
in this scene,
like, yes. To like, who's the bigger man?
Yeah.
Oh, and this is also another very interesting thing from the commentary. Shonda goes to P-Hort. She says, "You kept asking me, don't you want helicopters? Don't you want to see what's going on outside?" And she said, "No, because it doesn't matter. It's all about what's happening personally."
Yeah.
I'm like, where is that writer? Where did she go? Where's that woman that said that line? It's not evident later in the show that she even exists. And Peter goes, "It's not about grand scale. It's about detail. It's about intimacy. It's about the claustrophobia." I'm like, where did this go? Mm-hmm. I'm like, you're saying everything that was so true to these episodes, and then later in the show it just like
disappeared.
It's like you were body snatched or something. It's like you're not the same people. It's weird. And then Derek's like, the chief of surgery doesn't scare me. Dr. Bailey scares me.
Yes.
And he's like, get out of my OR. Get out of my OR.
So Addison comes in and Bailey's like, yeah, I'm trying to get gravity to do me a favor. I'm 9 centimeters dilated. And she finally kind of notices that there is something wrong with Addison. Mm-hmm. And she goes, Dr. Shepard, where exactly is my husband? And Addison just goes, he's with my husband.
And Bailey goes, that doesn't help at all. That means nothing to me.
Yeah. But I like it. I like how we don't get the full drawn out scene of her being like, your husband was in a car crash and blah, blah.
Well, because we don't need it.
Yeah, but I like it. I like that choice.
So then this is a very interesting thing. This scene where they're in the X-ray viewing room and Burke is with Dylan.
Which, like, how'd they get X-rays?
Unclear.
You know, that was my first thought. They're like looking at these X-rays, and I'm like, one question: how'd they get them? Because two, if they took them beforehand, wouldn't they have like seen the bomb and been like,
They did not take them beforehand.
There's something weird in there. And if they took him now, like, they obviously didn't move him from the OR, so they have like a mobile X-ray.
Oh yeah, I mean that exists.
Okay.
Anyway,
but did it exist back then?
I don't know. I don't know what medical advances were made.
I have questions.
Yes, it did exist because they did it. They wouldn't have put something that didn't exist.
I have questions about this.
And so this was a fully created scene that did not exist. If you notice, their lips never move. They just had like extra shots, and then they had them ADR in all the lines, which is hilarious. And most of the shots are from behind. Yeah. So, yeah. But I also love how this is the reveal of the bomb. Like, how creepy is it to see that with, like, her skeleton hand?
And the glowing, yes.
Yes, because it looks like death, you know?
It's
like,
awesome.
Ugh.
It looks like something you'd put, like, up for, like, Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's a good idea.
Just get some X-rays.
You be the hand, I'll be the bomb.
Ew. How are you going to be a bomb? So now we get the pink mist scene.
First scene in the show that doesn't have one of our 10 main characters in it. So,
which is cool.
Very cool.
I like that choice.
So now Dr. Milton gets his villain monologue. It's his moment to shine. Would you like to take this?
Pink mist. That's what the bomb squad calls you when you blow up. Pink mist. I read that somewhere. Bomb goes off and anyone in range explodes into a billion pieces. You're liquid. There's nothing left. Just flecks of human flesh and blood. Pink mist. Sometimes they don't even find a finger. 1 minute you're a person, the next, you're bloody rain.
I'm sorry, but for some reason that makes me laugh. Because, like,
it's just the last sentence.
Because like, Hannah is just, like, looking at him like, are you kidding me? Like,
this is a great time to bring that up.
The way she looks at him like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, when she looks at him and he's just like, 1 minute you're a person and the next you're bloody rain. And she's just like, I want to kill you.
And she's like, I'm going to take this bomb out of his body and
shove it down your throat.
Yeah, I can chuck it at you.
Yeah.
Just for saying that.
And then this piece of human garbage makes her take the ambu bag.
And it's just like, peace out, bitches.
Yeah, he's just like, peace, I'm leaving. And
you're terrible at tennis.
I'm gonna leave. And such an interesting choice that, like, he has her take it, teaches her how to use it, is at the door before she has this realization dawn over her, like, he's actually leaving.
Yeah, and she's like, wait, what?
She's like, oh, 1 second.
And then and then he just goes, I've got kids.
The way he said that line made me laugh. I'm sorry. He's like, I've got kids. And then just leaves. And I was like, you're probably
I've got kids. And you're like, congratulations.
I hope they're all cowards like you. Peace out, bitches. What Shonda and P. Hort were saying, and I guess Ed, I really couldn't tell the difference between P. Hort's voice and Ed's voice, so I might be giving P. Hort more credit than he deserves, but is that this is such an incredibly human thing to do.
Yes.
You know?
And I feel like, you know, watching this, you're like, oh my gosh, Dr. Milton, he's such a coward. But the fact of the matter is I feel like a lot of people, if they were in that situation, would pick the flight reflex, you know? Because it is. I mean, you're standing there facing death. Like, what are you going to do? Fight it or fly? Like,
well, I mean, does it make you more of a hero to stay and possibly blow up, or to be the good father that leaves? Because depending on the way you look at it, it could be different. It'd be like, well, now my kids have a father. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, that's going to help my 2 kids versus
like,
this
I was smart and
22-year-old.
got out of this horrible situation.
Yeah. It's just, it's so human, but we're trained that when we watch TV and movies to think that
Like,
cowards...
oh, he's the bad guy.
Yeah,
like,
he's like...
the coward. He's horrible.
Yeah, he's a piece of human trash, which he is, but, you know.
And then, so we have Mindy and Paul. And she's, like, freaking out. And I feel like the chief is just sitting there like, I hate you two so much right now.
Yeah, he's just like my hospital is going to blow up because of you.
I'm personally going to go to your house and destroy your stupid bazooka.
Yeah, seriously. So anyway, the chief is, like, almost like, I freaking hate you guys. But then he, like, turns around and he's, like, the good old optimist chief. And he's like, why don't you get Mrs. Carlson a cup of coffee? And I'm like, oh, I love you, the chief. And then... freaking Mindy says this line. She's like, I guess I should look on the bright side. It's not like it could get any worse. I mean,
like,
this is it. This is as bad as it gets, right? And I'm like, God damn it, Mindy.
And you're like, this is the moment where the hospital just like catches on fire or something. Like,
it's like, why would you say
she's
that?
Like, this can't get any worse. And then they're like, by the way, the bomb is actually a nuke. And I feel like Richard knows that because he's silent right after she says that. And I feel like he's just like, God damn it, you woman.
Yeah, like, he's just like, I just got you a freaking cup of coffee, and now you're saying this. I freaking hate you. Yeah. So, then we have this Bailey breaking down scene. She's like, the baby's not going to be born today. I'm holding it in. I can't do this without my husband. And I cannot do the emotion. I mean, you can't even make it equal. So, I don't even just watch the scene.
It's so good.
She's an amazing actress. It's almost over the top, though. It is so close to being a little bit too dramatic for me, where I'm like, okay.
But so good.
And the quivering lip.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. So then we cut over to Christina and Meredith, who are just 100% like, I feel like they were like, this bomb looks interesting. Let's go figure it out. Yeah.
They literally look bored. Like, it's hilarious. I love these two. And they're just kind
of watching, like, these two. Like, can't they just figure out what they're going to do faster? Like,
so then they look in and find Hannah by herself, squeezing the ambu bag. Freaking Dr. Milton.
And you'll notice, first scene, Burke isn't with Hannah, and this is when she's freaking out.
No, it's the second, because Milton.
Okay, well, Milton was a little turd, but whatever.
Yeah, he was a turd.
So then we get the song In the Sun by Michael
Stipe
and Chris Martin.
Mm-hmm. And this song was actually submitted to Grey's Anatomy, which is kind of cool. She's just like, yeah, I'm going to take my hand out now. And so I guess it's important to say here that this is when the action starts to rise. You start getting that swell of music and sound and freaking out and panicking, and it starts right here. And so we get a little bit more about the device, that it's homemade, so it's even more unreliable. It could be a dud, but there's no way of knowing, you know? And so then Christina's like, help, we need help. And, you know, Burke and Dylan run down the hallway. There's, like, we can't do this dialogue because there's just so much of it. Mm-hmm. They're just, like, trying to, like, calm down Hannah.
And I feel like, because I feel like a lot of the other dialogue we do, I can do it because I've heard it so many times. But in this scene, there's just so much else going on with the music and all the noises. Like, I feel like I hear it as all of that going on. Well, and so I can't think of how they say it even.
The dialogue itself isn't important. That's the thing.
Yes. And so I can't, like, picture it in my head of, like, this is what they're saying and this is how they said it and whatever.
Yeah, because the dialogue is, like, second place to the music, is second place to the facial acting. But she says, I am 22 years old. I should not even be here. How old are you? You're 22, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, damn.
I can't even imagine.
Christina Ricci is so good. Mm-hmm. Dylan is still super hot. Yeah. And
the camera, it's cutting so like,
quickly.
You're getting all that. The music's getting louder. And it's all kind of coming up to this moment.
This is all about rising panic. They're doing that muting thing again.
Well, yeah, but it's like a different muting because you can still hear them.
It's like Digby.
Like the music is getting louder, but I feel like their voices are getting softer.
Yeah.
Like it's because you're almost getting so much. Like if you were in that moment, you're getting so much into your own head that you can't hear what's going on around you. But the music is like what you're hearing in your head, kind of thing.
So Burke tries to get rid of Meredith, and Meredith's like, I'm not leaving her. He tries to get rid of Christina, and she's like, I'm not leaving either, basically. And Hannah eventually is like, "Oh, it has to come out. It has to," and music's louder and louder and louder. And then all of a sudden it just she pulls her hand out and runs to the door. And which is interesting because they don't have a reaction of what the patient looks like when she pulls the hand out. Because she pulls her hand out and then we kind of follow Hannah.
Yeah, because we get...
And that bloody handprint
three
on the
of them,
wall is so good.
dropping to the floor, and you get her, like, running and the bloody, like, her putting her hand on the door and
just
bloody...
such creepy visual. And then there's
the close-up on Meredith's face.
Close-up on Meredith's face. Everything is in slow-mo. And there's a shot that they call The Rise. Like, literally, P. Hort, Ed, and Shonda call it The Rise. And it's the rise of the camera from the floor, as if you were one of the people who dropped to the floor and realizing what happened. Because if you go back and you watch it, there's a specific camera angle where it rises, and that's when you can see Meredith's hand there.
Yes.
And her stillness, Ellen's stillness, is what makes it work so well. She's just completely, like, she looks completely, like, freaked out.
And frozen, yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. And that, there is a shot where it rises up, and it's like, oh, it's so good. And then this is important, because the last shot of the episode, one of the last shots is a wide shot of Meredith standing almost in that exact position that
she started in. But one thing I realized, which is super weird, and I never realized it until this moment, is that the OR is different than the one they started in. Yes.
Look in the background. See all the medical supplies in the background there?
So, important thing to notice, this is not the OR we started in.
And maybe that's because it's a dream sequence, maybe.
Because you can also, Derek is obviously not in this. And so
Derek won't be there. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's confusing.
But
also, another thing to note is that Derek's position is right now being taken up by Dylan.
Yes.
So, anyway.
Which is actually interesting, because I feel like they did almost the slate of the mirrored images, because we started in a scene very similar to this, except for the fact, Derek is Dylan. It's very dark.
Yeah, there's so much stuff in this OR.
Yes, and you can obviously tell that it's not the same OR. So very interesting.
Yeah.
That we kind of get like a halfway mirrored shot of this episode.
It's like, it's like there's 3 of the same shots. Mm-hmm. And it's just Ellen saying, "What did I do? What did I do? What did I do? What did I do?"
And I love how because it like fades to black, and then they do the like Grey's Anatomy on the screen, and she's still doing the like, "What did I do? What did I do?"
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, like, I have no idea how people waited a week to find out what happened. Because I could not click episode 17 fast enough when I was watching. Like, it took too long. It was like, I had to go through the credits, and I was like, episode 17! Like, let's go! I have no idea.
It's just astounding. So seriously, count 2. It would be insulting if I even, asked you if you had to make one change, because... No. Fun fact, it's 2:16 right now. That's what time of day it is.
That's creepy.
Now it's 2:17 p.m. and next week we're talking about season 2 episode 17. It's called, in parentheses, As We Know It, which is, the continuation, obviously. Also written by Shonda Rhimes, also directed by P. Hort. We don't have any patient rankings because the patients will do it all at the end.
Mm-hmm. Because it's one whole episode. It doesn't make sense to rank the patients out. And let's be honest, we don't really know them.
Well, we will rank the patients. Yes. Not to worry, folks. I will also be posting the Gray Matter blog that Shonda wrote. She is kind of annoying when she writes. I was reading it and I was like, ugh. Like, I can hear her talk, and it's like she's really into herself. And the fact that Meredith is supposed to resemble her is not shocking to me. Yeah. I don't really have anything else. I would definitely read this Gray Matter blog, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, one thing that we kind of mentioned that we were going to talk about earlier was how I said that I thought this was kind of the climax.
Okay. But I feel like I can't talk about it until we get to the next one, unless you want me to spoil.
Well, the only thing that I guess I can say is because I feel like this was kind of the moment, like, if I was looking at this as a mountain, it would be like this whole episode was getting up to this point, And then the next episode is like everything falling out from what happened in there.
But if you study
the actual like plot and
like the exposition, rising action, climax. Like if you actually follow that, you're wrong.
No,
like
I make sense. I meant it more in the fact of like the next episode is just the fallout from that moment, kind of.
No, it's a very good middle point because the first half, like if you look at season 2, episode 16 and 17 as one story, because it gets confusing when we split into episodes. So stop thinking of it as 2 episodes. Think of it as one story. Then you're right. The first half of the story is getting Meredith to touch the bomb, and then the second half of the story is what happens if your main character is touching a bomb.
Yeah, like happens because of the fact that her hand is on the bomb.
And I mean, when you look at how stories are constructed, more than half of the story happens before the climax.
Yeah.
Very little happens after the climax, which is why the climax is not the middle point of movies.
Which, granted, I could have used a better word than climax, but whatever.
Yeah. Izzie and Alex hooked up. Right now we have Bailey not wanting to push. You know, Meredith is touching a freaking bomb, which actually, let's talk about that a little bit. You know that Meredith was like, everyone's looking at Hannah and Hannah's getting all the attention. But what Hannah doesn't know is that this show is called Grey's Anatomy. So I need to push her out of the way to touch this bomb. Yeah.
What really happened was Meredith stuck her hand in there and was like, Hannah, leave.
Hannah, get out.
This is my show.
Hannah, this is about me.
And then she was like, oh, what did I do? What did I do? But really, she's like, I know exactly what I did.
I'm Meredith, bitch.
This is my freaking show. Get out.
Yeah, she's just like, this is about me.
It's not Davy's Anatomy. It's Grey's Anatomy.
Get it right. And Derek is also like, ooh, everyone's giving me attention because I'm staying in this OR. Ugh. Meredith
better
and Derek,
take my time.
Meredith and Derek are meant for each other. Like, their personalities, they're both kind of like just narcissistic monsters. And that's why I kind of love them. They're just, they're horrible. I love them. Little monsters.
Yeah, 100%. Meredith was like, people need to look at me. I need to hit my hand on the bomb. Hannah, move.
Get the fuck out of here. Anyway, so that's it. Yeah, next week we're talking about the part 2 of it. No closing speech either. See you next time.
Bye.